Hi, Mary.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm great. Yep.
How's it since our last talk?
Well, it's the fog is cleared. Um, I think.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so why I was kind of muddled was because I kind of the character.
Yeah.
Here's how it works for
Yeah.
me. The character had figured all this out.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was still identification with the character. That's that boundary, right?
Yeah. Like who
And so
figured it out, basically, right?
yes,
There you go.
yes.
Okay.
But for my story, that's how this had to happen. The
Yeah.
character had to get to the end of the line,
Yeah.
and then, um, and she did in 2017. She kind of saw through the whole thing, but yet that was just a glimpse, which I didn't really. And then, so now I've been unpacking it and unpacking it, going through the dark night, healing the character.
Yeah.
And now, then since our conversation, I listened to two or three of your group calls, and then because I came through that awareness route,
Yeah.
I found and Angelo. I took a retreat with Angelo a few weeks ago. Angelo, you've mentioned him,
Yeah.
Delulo, or however you say his name,
Yeah.
and he was some puzzle pieces that I needed clarifying.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
And
great at
then
that. Yeah.
yeah, and then but in one of his talks that or in the retreat or whatever, he said something or the way I heard it was even awareness falls or even the soul or something like that. And I was like, consciousness, I think. And I was like, oh, I have
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
idea what that's about. So here I am.
Yeah.
And so then so yeah, I listened to the one your group call about unpacking awareness or something like that. The trap of
Oh,
awareness.
yeah. Yeah.
Holy hell, that was just like
Boom,
did
right?
it.
Yeah.
And so after it was over, I felt the death and the grief of the character.
Yeah.
I mean, it still goes on, so it's not real, but that's what it feels
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. But
The last bit of
but the
sadness. I
solidity,
had,
right? The solidity is just
yeah,
you're like,
yeah. And I had so much grief in the dark night, so many layers of
yeah.
different types of grief, grieving me, my death, grieving, everything. But anyway, and it was like, it was the subtlest little, it went out with a whisper, not a bang.
Yeah.
And it was really kind of anticlimactic.
Yep.
And it was like, oh, wow. And so then, last night as I was pondering it, it's just a hologram that in theory I get completely. I've read Holographic Universe multiple times. It's just amazing. But what came to me last night, why that never really registered, and it made later, but it was like, oh my God, we are the main character in our own interactive and immersive novel. And the storyline has its ups and downs, its heartaches, its
Yeah.
triumphs.
Yeah.
And then at the end, my character got her happy ending. She went from self-hatred to self-love, like that
Yeah. Yeah.
radiance of being.
Yeah.
And she found this man who loves her unconditionally, and got married a couple of years ago, year and a half ago. And it's like, wow. And so, and then we all have our own novels and we're all in each other's novels, but we're only the main character in our own novel. And so it was like, holy shit, what a ride. So, so that's my spiel for the morning. So,
Beautiful. Yeah. I when we were talking, there was some clicking, but there was an immediacy, kind of like, the character was always, I don't know if you noticed that, right? Like there was some clicking, kind of like almost like the eyes would go almost blank, and then the character takes over right away. You know what I'm saying?
I do not.
You do not.
Hold on one second. I'm
Yeah.
going to step away. The joy of eating nuts.
Yes. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So,
No worries.
okay, so
Yeah, there was some I see it all the time, right? When there's the resistance, right? Because the character wants to be involved in it, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
thought you were pointing to. It's just the
yeah,
clicking. I wasn't sure.
yeah,
Okay, so let's clarify that up,
yeah.
Ken.
So it has kind of like what I said the last time, right? You know what? When you get out of the way, then it's super clear. Then you see the hologram, you know what I'm saying? Because the character goes, well, how do I see that? How do I
Right.
experience that? How do I see my ending? Kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So is
And
there a way?
especially for you that has gone through like, I don't know, like so much, stuff, right? It's like, wow. And again, it's different for every character, right?
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
characters, you know what? Just in case we release it, it's not one way.
exactly,
It's not
exactly.
one way. Some people go to dark night of soul, some people don't even
My
know.
husband didn't at all. It pisses
Yeah.
me off royally.
Some people need to work their trauma and some people don't. You know what I'm saying? But believing that it should be this way and that way creates this loop, loop. And I think that that's what might have happened to you, is that you kept on stepping out of the story and you'll get back in again. Stepping out of
Hmm.
the story, get back in again, right? Because you kind of like had this multiple, you know, awakening, so to speak, right? Multiple like, this 2017, and then before that, and then before that. And the finality of that is that when you basically close the book,
What?
when
The
you close the
finality is
book, when you
yes.
close the book, it's
Okay.
kind of like what I'm saying. Like, you know what? No past, no future, because you kept on going back into that, right? So if there's no future, there's no past, then you must be dead, Mary.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That's where that grief was.
yeah.
And the realization of, oh yeah, this is the final nail in the coffin.
It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. And it's
But I
just
do,
there's nowhere to go now, right? There's nowhere to, the life continues, so to speak, right? But there's almost like a resting in peace with it.
hmm hmm.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Can you still love your story?
Oh, of course. I love
Okay.
stories. Yeah.
But I mean your own personal, even though there's no personal, but
What if you
or
take away the your, then it's just love?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there, because I will say right now, there's love, and I get choked up as I say this. There's love for the character. I
Yeah.
mean, just like
Oh,
you
yeah.
go,
You go.
girl. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah. Totally. Yeah. I get
okay,
teared
okay,
up to you saying that because I went through similar to you, what you went through, right?
right.
And I was like, wow, wow. Well,
Like
you
any
know what?
good story.
Like any good story, right? It's almost like what a tragic comedy.
Yes, yes, and wouldn't have it any other way
Yeah,
because it got
yeah,
me here.
yeah. Somehow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Then if you look back again, you know what? Because there's almost like this two realities, right? One which is the narrative reality, which is kind of like your, you know, linear, I've been here and there, and it has the beginning and ending. But when you go in between the beginning and ending, between that character, no character, there's this piece that I know that you're sensing it. It's just, oh my goodness, right? It's like, yeah. So
oh
grieving happens too. Yeah. Grieving happens
yeah,
for that character. Like, what a story, but wow, it's like and then you don't even, because I used to repeat stories and I would have pain about it, and now it's like, what a great read that was.
yes, exactly.
And you feel for the character, right? The character, you're like, and then you see the innocence of the character.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 100%,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, and in the Dark Knight or the Dark Night of the Will is what Adyashanti clarified it after
Mhm.
the awakening, because that's when the personal will dies, and that's what you're grieving. And
Yeah.
time died for me, and I remember the grief of and yes, I'm going back into the memory of the
That's okay.
story,
That's okay.
but the when the past died and I wailed over that because it was like, oh well then this makes it, anyway. And then a few hours after that, then I wailed again because it was like, oh my God, then my whole future dies too because it's all based on the past. And so there's just this and then oh what what is this? How do I live from this?
Yeah, the
And the
past creates
fear and
the
yeah,
past creates a reality, and the
yes.
future maintains it.
Oh, oh, oh,
Yeah.
oh,
So without the past, then there goes your reality.
right. Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
just
And there's
don't
the
know.
infinite now. There's the infinite
Mhm.
unknowingness, right? There's like, it's almost like the knowing was almost like the cross that we had to carry. Then we finally got rid of it. We're like, oh, it's light here.
Mhm.
It's easy. It's retired.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like a retirement, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You retired the character.
Yes, yes, yeah. So the other thing that clarified was this, I came to you mainly because of this sense of a boundary. And then
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's just between now and when a couple of days
Yeah.
ago, oh, that's just a thought I'm
It
believing. It's just
is.
a sense.
It
But
is.
yet I made it real. I
Yeah.
believed it was real. And now it's like, oh, well, it's kind of still here, but there's kind of a much more trust now.
Yeah.
Like it's just going to fall away. It's all just falling away, falling away.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
let it
It's just
unfold.
a belief that's double down, right? Because I believe that I sense this thing. So it's actually
Oh, right.
triple. Yeah. But when you
Turtles all
look
the
at
way down. That's the phrase
beliefs
that
all turtles all the way down, right? Of course, turtles all the way down. How do you
I never
know?
knew what that phrase meant. And then it just popped in my head and it
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
oh, turtles all the way
I
down.
love I love saying that all the time, right? It's like it's beliefs all the way down, right? All
Yes.
thoughts all the way down. And they're all ephemeral that we solidified because I believe that that's what's true for me. So the belief believing a belief to maintain
Yeah.
a belief of
Yep.
I. And it just
Yes.
keeps on going back and forth, back and forth, right? So I
Yes.
usually see what's between belief and non-belief.
And just this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which again, I'd known in the past, and I knew when we started our call, I know it's just this, but there was the boundary issue.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And the
yeah,
boundary issue can be called many names. Some people call it shadow. Some people call it contraction. Some people will call it sense of separation. Some
yeah,
people call it a central, whatever. It's the same thing as awareness, the same thing as consciousness, the same thing as, you know, everything being nothing. It's emptiness. The moment that you put a word into it, you believe it, don't you?
right, right.
And then there's also shared experiences of people that will say that. But again, this is like every undoing is the same as your thumbprint. It's all unique.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it's all unique. So I had a 20-year-old guy that I talked to a year ago, and he watched all my videos, and he goes, "I just wanted to reach out, Emerson, that you know what, you're saying that there's some maybe some clarification." He goes, "It's always been clear for you. I'm still really content. I'm still really happy." And then he's like, "You know what? Um, yeah." He goes, My family's surprised." And he told me something he didn't tell me before. He goes, "I had a heroin addiction." I'm like, "Oh my goodness." And then I'm like, "Oh, you look so good now," right? So he's put on like, like his face filled up and everything. And then he said and that fell away. You guys
Yeah,
didn't, I was like, wow,
yeah,
wow,
yes.
wow. And he'll remain anonymous because his parents
Well,
didn't
of
even know
course,
that
of
he didn't
course.
even do. But it's so fascinating because here we are judging a person. We're thinking that, oh, you're 20-year-old, you know what I'm saying? Because I always say this, I'm like, I'm gonna smack you. It took me 30 years plus, right? I suffered so much, but I didn't even know that he was suffering.
Right, right. We don't
Yeah.
have these stories.
And
Yeah.
then also there are people that don't even suffer.
Like my husband.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
like
mean,
your
he had
husband.
his
Yeah.
life tragedies. Um, But as far as awakening, it's just he hadn't shed a tear over it. I
Yeah.
wailed for year, 2 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's like,
Yeah. We're the
so
dramatic ones, Mary.
yes, and
We're
I
the
love
drama
my
queens.
drama. I
Yeah.
love my drama. So yeah,
I
it's
was
just
laughing with another person. I said, well, if Emerson was going to go through this, it's going to be what happened. That's the character authentically, what would happen to that character. And that's
yeah,
the same thing with Mary. If Mary, you know what I'm saying, in the trajectory of Mary unmarrying,
yes,
the Mary
yeah,
had to be full on authentic, messy. You know what I'm
yes,
saying?
yes,
You better
yeah.
be writing a book.
I'm really,
Yeah.
always thought about it, but I never have. And so, and I kind of just keep waiting and not in a, used to it was a waiting for, the next, but now it's waiting for, I'll know when it's the right
Yeah,
time
totally. Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
There's
yeah.
not
And like,
not even a drive, right? It's just what it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 And I'll know and it will or it won't. And
Yeah.
it's not up to me.
Yeah.
Like the same thing all through the years, I've had multiple people tell me I'm supposed to teach. And there's no impetus and it's not up, and so it's like, well, if I am, I will, and
Yeah.
then we'll see.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Totally. Yeah. It's funny, right? Because I always said this, and because I had my first taste of, you know, the apparent awakening, very briefly. Well, not really briefly, it lasted for a long time, but I had a feeling that I had to maintain it. So, um, and it was heartbreaking because, you know what, there's the sincerity of the character to really help others, right? And then, but when you see that, um, it was not a facade because it was not faking it, but it was temporal. So I was resistant now to be able to speak about this. I'm like, oh, if somebody asked me, will you be speaking about this? I'm like, no, no, that's, and then somehow it happened
Yeah. Yeah.
accidentally, actually, not even by choice. It was just accidental. Someone could not make it. And someone basically said, hey, Emerson, why don't you speak? The person can't make it. I'm like, okay, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But there was no forcing it. There was no planning it. It was just, I was just happy being behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the way I am, but I'm also surrendered. It's just that
That's what
was
it is.
that's what it is. Yeah. And that was how the awakening happened because the night I just said, I give up. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Take over. And then here we are, seven
Yeah.
years
It takes a
later.
lot of humility, isn't it? Right.
Oh,
Takes a lot of, like, it's almost like, I say this, that it's almost like the character had to be slapped around to finally
oh,
admit,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I wanted to surrender for years, but in a Western Christian tradition, you're like, well, I don't like how that outcome. So what is this going to mean? And so, not that I was I mean, I'd left Christianity in the way it's taught now back 35 years ago, but because I don't think it's true to Jesus's teachings. But
Mhm.
anyway, I don't mean to go on a tangent, but yeah, and so yes, I did have to get slapped around. It was like, and trying to figure it out. You think you're
Yeah.
doing the best and all that. So the clicking, is that still happening, or is that
It's just a
it's just
word.
gonna fall away?
It's just a word.
Well, I mean,
There's
that was
no,
your word to describe my.
well, right now I see that it's clicked. You know what I'm saying? So there's no more clicking to happen.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Because of course that's my little ego coming back
That's
in going,
right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. It's always like that though, or you're not the only one, right? There's this person that basically, called me, and basically said, Emerson, I haven't been able to speak for the past 2 weeks, similar to what happened to me. You know what I'm saying? That kind of like speechlessness. He goes, of course I lived in a cabin out in the woods, so it's easier to do that and everything, right? And he goes, but when when do I get what you have?
oh,
And I'm like, so how has it been for the past 2, 3 weeks? And he goes, oh my goodness, heaven, Emerson, heaven. I'm like, you want more than heaven? And he goes,
yeah,
oh, damn it. He goes, see, see, because that's why I didn't talk. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah,
And I'm like, if you notice it now that that's just coming automatically. It's almost like,
Oh, it's been automatic for a while.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's just coming
I've been able to
automatically. Yeah.
watch. I just kind of
It's
on
just,
a
if you look at it, it's just
consequential.
innocence playing. Kind of like, do you want to go
Yes,
hide and seek again?
yes,
And
that's
I'm
yes,
like, no.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes,
You want
yes,
to play again?
yeah,
I think
no,
you're done playing, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the seduction of the playing is because of the lack of trust in the bigger picture.
Yeah, yeah,
So now that I'm seeing this, well, and the character, but it, like you said, in that trap of awareness, that was just a fabulous talk because you talked about the Jimmy Savile scandal from both sides of the coin of
yeah, yeah,
the character, because that's what I have no, I have very little knowledge of the radical
yeah,
non-duality
yeah.
because it pissed
It
me off. And
yeah,
it because it's so if it doesn't help the character because the characters are still suffering. And so to me, it was very dismissive and insulting. That's my take on it.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
don't,
yeah.
there may
And
be a part that does address the
yeah.
suffering.
And again, it's different strokes for different folks, right?
Yeah.
So for example, for people that have been, doing the awareness for a long, long time and they encountered this
Well,
kind of stuff.
yes.
Yeah. But
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Like encountering you. It's
yeah,
you're kind of a version of it, but yet you manage to hold both parts, which I think is a more complete
yeah, yeah. Someone said that too. They're
picture.
like, you're in between the awareness and the radical thing. And that's why
Yes.
you're saying in between, right? Because you know what, there's I'm not going to, for example, if somebody tells me that they just had a dark night of the soul, I won't tell them that there's no you
Not real.
that
Yeah,
went through that,
that's
right?
just
And
cruel
it's
to me.
cruel, yeah, because I've been through that, right?
Yeah.
Saying I know how at one point I would have cut my both of my legs and blinded myself to get what I thought I lost, right?
Yes. Yes. I said I'd be a bag lady. That was my
That's right.
worst
Yeah. Yeah.
scenario
Yeah.
that night.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's that willingness to just do whatever it takes.
That's right. Yeah.
And
And then
so,
there's people that get really, really depressed from it, from that there's no one here, there's nothing happening. But for some people, it's relaxing,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
So some people can like, oh, they're like, oh, it's hopeless and everything. But someone that perhaps maybe have gone through some difficult, traumatic childhood, you know what I'm saying, to hear that. So it's not for everyone, right?
Right.
So
Different
what
tools for
I'm
different
bridging
fools.
the gap basically,
Right.
right? It's like
Yes.
I have a very, very almost like very radical approach as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But it's not just negation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's
Yes.
just negation and negation and negation, right? And I would say that there's no one here, even though it feels like there's someone here. I would complete the sentence and not just leave it hanging.
Yes.
That's the
Yes.
difference. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, so
Yeah.
fabulous.
Hmm. Yeah. A lot of people actually wrote me about that video. They're like, okay, that cracked me, that there's
Yes.
some certain videos that, there's another one called Words, the rise and fall of the empire of words.
Okay. I'm writing notes on it because I want to look at it.
Yeah.
Um, and hold on one second. The other thing, well, that brain cell died. Um, hold
You're gonna be
on.
seeing a lot of that soon. You
Oh
probably
yeah, well that's my whole and things are for years, and maybe it's always happened, but it seems like in the last 5 to 7 years, objects appear and disappear.
yeah,
Do you have that too? And it makes sense because if this isn't real, then it just can be whatever it's
yeah,
is that day. Yeah.
there's a lot of glitches in this appearance. You know what I'm saying? If you're not caught up in your thoughts, right? So
Yes.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of there's a lot of almost like a pixelating, you know what I'm saying? It's if you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
But
Well, yeah, and
and again,
again,
for people listening to this, don't that's just a story again, right? So because people will be
yeah.
waiting for the story, right? So
Okay.
for the
Okay.
next,
Yeah.
for the next, because but yeah, you know what? The more that you look at it, the more direct that this is, right? Without any kind of um it's the same thing as in a dream. In a dream, you
Yeah.
could be having, a matcha tea latte um on the rings of Saturn, and you're not going to be questioning it whatsoever. There's no gravity there, but somehow you're there with the matcha latte, and and then you wake up and you're like, oh, I was drinking matcha tea latte at this rings of Saturn, and yeah,
And you
somehow
don't question the glitches in the dream
you
either.
don't
You know,
question.
like you're on Saturn's rings and the next
That's right.
suddenly in the same dream, you're suddenly in the grocery store buying matcha, right?
That's right.
And you
Yeah.
don't go,
Yeah.
wait, how did I get here? You just roll with it. So
You just roll with it. And the same thing
yeah.
with here. Like, for example, um, there's really no distance, yet we think that we are in, that kind of thing, right? It's bizarre. It can't really be. Or the other thing is um someone was telling me this. It was quite fascinating. Um, she said one time she lives in a building, and she sensed that there's no one in the building. No one. Like she's living in this, like, I'm like, she
Now,
said,
is this a dream she's having or
no,
is
no,
this
this is in real thing, right?
okay?
So this is
Okay.
like almost like a solipsistic thinking. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
This is just the
okay.
self and everything. So one day she asked the security guard, um, and this is kind of like when she was going insane, basically. She asked the security guard of the building, goes, how many people live here? He goes, oh, I don't know, quite a few, right? Because I don't see anyone here at all. So one day there was like, many, many months later, but she never sees anyone. And so one day there was like a fire alarm. There's two people that came down.
Whoa.
Yeah, yeah. And then somehow, and this is weird. This is her story, not my story, right? She said somehow because she saw that, then the next couple of days she started seeing more people. But she's like only two people went down, and she thought someone just bought the building. She didn't think anything mystical about it.
Ah.
Not nothing. Maybe she's like, maybe someone owns the building. And there's just really two people. And then she said to the other person, are we the only one here? She goes, I've always wondered about that. The other person. Yeah. So it felt really dream-like, right? She goes, did I dream the thing? And then she said, but no, because you know what? I do remember, she thought she was going crazy, but she was having a little bit more clarity of what this is. She was beginning to lose reality and unreality or whatever, right? So that's her story. But, I'm like, yeah, it's like a dream, right? Because you don't question it until
Wow.
you're directly looking at it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting.
It's like the words that we're using right now, they're all made up,
Right.
but yet we believe them. We're
It's
not
how we
really,
play the game.
that's right. Yeah,
It's just the tools of the game.
it is. Yeah. And it's really playful if you look at it.
Yes, I can see that this is about to just become so much fun.
It's so playful. Yeah, it is.
Now,
Yeah.
the thing that you like with you, and this is kind of going in again, anyway, um, you are able to, like when I started, and you said, I can still feel you clicking in and out.
Yeah.
And I don't have that skill, talent, ability. Does that just come online the more this
Well, I do this like,
dissipate?
6, 7, 8 times a day, right? So I
Right.
usually look at the eyes. I'm going in directly.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's very subtle. It's very subtle, right? So it's almost like the eye blacks out
Oh,
and then it
wow.
goes back a little bit. Yeah.
Now, do you have special glasses for that? Because I know I've heard you talk on your videos. You'll take off glasses to read something, and you say these aren't real, and or
No,
is
no,
this
no, no.
okay?
No,
I
yeah.
didn't. I mean, I didn't know it was like 3D glasses.
No.
Whatever.
X-ray glasses, Barry.
That's the phrase I meant. That's the phrase I meant. Oh, that's
No, no, no.
hilarious.
It's just the noticing. And again, it's just a story, right? I usually people can like almost like when people black out, the eyes kind of like just goes a little bit, you know.
Oh, yes, I
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, you do
And
that. Yeah.
somebody pointed that out. Like I'm not staying here.
It's like you're in and out.
Yes.
It's like a
Okay.
deer caught in a headlight, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that'll just keep taking care of itself the
Oh
safer
yeah,
I
yeah,
feel? Because that's
yeah,
a safety thing,
yeah,
a guard kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's almost like the surrender. It's trying to surrender, but the um the opposite comes in, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like
So,
it's almost like we're possessed with thoughts if you look at it.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. Oh, I am
And
obsessed
then
with
and then
thoughts.
we
Oh,
think that that's who we are, but it
yeah, it's an
glitches.
addiction. It's
It
an addiction.
glitches in and out, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Cool.
like being in and out of the story. In the world, but out of this world simultaneously.
Yes. Yes.
When everything seemingly settles in, but that's just another story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this Jimmy Savile thing that was just and I loved how you didn't have any hesitation in telling the side that goes against societal thinking about,
Yeah.
you were like, well, from the absolute, and it was very nonchalant about it. And
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't get hate mail or something. I don't know, but because that's shocking to a lot of people, right? But I
Yeah.
it completely but you also said, but from the dream. And so I don't know if in one
I don't
thing that,
remember it. Can you repeat what I said?
well, the gist of it was that somebody said, what do you think about that in
Mhm.
a Q&A? And you
Yeah.
said, from the character's perspective, it's horrible.
Oh
You'd
yeah.
watched a Netflix
Oh yeah.
documentary.
Yeah. Yeah, that's horrible.
And you said from a character's perspective, it was horrible. I wish they'd caught him before he died because so that he could be punished and all that. And you said, but from I don't remember what phrase you
The
used. It wasn't
absolute.
the absolute. Okay, from the absolute's perspective, it just happened and it didn't. It's a story that then disappears and stuff like that. And so you
Yeah.
unequivocally said it from that way too. And I was like, that's it. That's the whole
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah.
And and one thing you didn't reference that because I was okay with it, because my foundation is in a study called concept therapy, which nobody knows about, but I found it's Dr. Fleet started it in the 30s.
Hmm.
And I found it when I lived nearby and actually live nearby right now. But anyway, um, the phrase from the Bible in Isaiah 45, and I'm not a Bible person, but he
Yeah.
quotes it over and over for this reason. I am the Lord thy God, and I create the peace and the destruction. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's depending on your vantage point.
Oh
Am I
yeah.
viewing
Yeah.
it from character or from absolute?
Well, if you
So
look at it, the absolute is also the relative.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that's what's coming together.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's what you bridge the gap for.
Yeah.
I've heard that, but it wasn't. The other thing I'm wondering is, since there's no doer and there's no control, I wonder if we have any control over when we finally get it all. It seems like
Yeah.
it's just the story arc.
It's just a story arc. Yeah. That you have a control. So you think that you have control. We think that we have choices, but without thinking, what's between control and no control? You can't even say it.
Mm-mm,
Yeah.
mm-mm.
Yeah. So even coming with a conclusion that there's no control, which is just a negation of control, is just another landing, right? So
Yeah, there's still that habit.
yeah, it's okay.
It'll
It's
fall
okay.
away.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a
Or
never
not.
ending falling away. Yeah. It's just it never really ends, to be honest with you. This is the infinite, right? So to think that you have landed at something or because from that absolute, there's no one here.
Yeah, yeah.
In the absolute, there's no time. This is not even happening. But in the relative, you know what I'm saying? We are talking, and then we're talking about the absolute. So this is where the absolute meets the relative.
And what I think I can, at least an interim stage, appears to be that I'll get confused and then I'll see through the confusion. I'll
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
clarity. And the confusion kind of helps the clarity come
Oh
online.
yeah. Oh yeah,
It's,
because it's a part of it.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
connected.
yeah,
Without confusion, there's no clarity. You know
exactly.
what I'm saying? It's interconnected. Everything is interconnected.
Yeah,
And at the
yeah.
same time, nothing is connected because there's
Uh-huh.
only singularity. You know what I'm saying? So it has never been separate.
Right,
The
right.
illusion is something cracked or something separate, and here we are, right? But since it's perfection, it's a perfect mistake that never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. And yet here we are with all of our beautiful stories about seeking and everything. And then eventually to see through that it was just like a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about our nightmares and everything, right? It's kind of like we're talking about sipping matcha tea latte on the rings of Saturn. Yeah. And then here we are, you know, talking in Zoom, as absurd as but when
Yeah,
there's only a singular thing here that does not even exist,
it can be anything.
it can be anything. Yeah, yeah. But here we are, we believe, you know what I'm saying, that you're Mary and I'm Emerson, although we're seeing through that really clearly now that a
Right.
belief is just a belief. It
Right.
beliefs all the way down, right?
Yes. 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 I do wish this would help my insomnia.
It's going to the next. What
Yeah,
insomnia?
uh,
Yeah,
it's true.
yeah,
I'm keeping it alive
that's
by
right.
worrying about it.
Exactly. It was
Okay.
so
Well,
funny, right? A few years later, I was like, I haven't had an anxiety attack. I'm like, oh, I don't have anxiety. Holy crow. And I was just kind of like, I was just stunned again. And I just looked like, wow,
yeah,
okay.
my
Because you
insomnia,
don't think about it anymore.
right, right.
Yeah.
My anxiety broke in a specific night. I mean, because I'd had it so bad. And then one night I just stayed with it. There was nowhere to go. I didn't want food, shockingly. I didn't want to read. I didn't want to listen to anything. And it was the middle of the night. I didn't want to, Bob couldn't have done anything to fix it, so I didn't wake him. And I just lay there, and then something popped.
Yep.
And the realization was, oh, it's just the label,
It
anxiety.
is.
But it
Yeah.
really is just what it feels like to be alive. This buzz
It
in the human
is. It's
body.
just if you even if you think that it's just sensations, and then when you have a thought about the future, it hijacks that sensation and calls it anxiety. Yeah.
That's I hadn't thought of that part of the puzzle because I haven't had it since. So it's
Hmm.
like, wow, that's brilliant. Okay, I have a
Hmm.
little list here. So I love
Go
my
for it.
list.
Go for it. Yeah.
Let's see. I would love to hear your story. Do you have a video where you talk about your history and your
Oh
story?
yeah, it's all over. It's all over. I always talk
Okay.
about it. Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
because I've heard you reference a period when you thought you were awake
yeah,
and
so
then
about 15, 17, my story is all muddled anyway because
yeah.
you'll see it like, like after a few years, you're like, it's like talking about a dream that never happened. Anyway,
Right.
so I was a corporate dude. I was in communications. I made a lot of money, and then I was partying a lot, and um, my relationships are always codependent, romantic relationships. And
Mhm.
then I started seeking for peace. Basically, I don't even remember, but anyway, after seeking for peace, I got into meditation. I became a meditation junkie. Like I was just basically shutting down the world, and I would book like cottages and stay for a week, you know what I'm saying, and just be by myself because I was going through so much stuff in my life. And then one day, you know what? I just decided I'm gonna go full on spirituality and everything. Took teacher trainings, meditations, anything that I can land on that's spiritual, Kundalini, yoga, everything, Ashtanga, um, Advaita Vedanta. And then when I got into Eastern philosophy and Advaita Vedanta, I fell in love with the idea of enlightenment.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then so I kept on studying. Studying was just like a professional seeker. And then I was transitioning from my job so that I could just be a full-time spiritual person. And I think I was fantasizing about not needing anything, walking, on the streets, like Ramana, that idea. And I'm like, but I'm gonna freeze in Canada because it's really cold here. Maybe I should move to Vancouver, right? So I went to Vancouver, and then lo and behold, after many, many years of spiritual, something happened. I was in the middle of the street of um I'm condensing it because it's a long story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, I'd love hearing it, but I want to make
Oh,
sure I'm checking
it's
on time.
it's on
Just
on the video. Yeah, it's one of the videos. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. So, let's see. So I've signed up for your email list. Will
Yeah.
I get notices
Yeah.
of?
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know if I'm going to need anything else. We'll
Yeah.
see. But so I'm like you. This is all I love. This is all I want to do is talk about this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's the only thing I don't have any talents. Witty banter and an ability to pick really good friends are my only talents. But as far as
That's great talents.
exactly. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't mean to denigrate them in any way. It's the best. But as far as a way to spend time, right?
Okay. Yeah.
There's no artistic ability, there's no musical ability, there's no and all the desires are falling away. So it's like, well, this is all I want to do. So
Yeah.
that's the only reason I think teaching might come online because I can't imagine anything more joyful than this
Oh,
being
it's
my
so
day
joyful.
over
So
and over and
joyful.
over.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if it does, it does. I have no
Yeah.
idea how to
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
happen. It'll
Yeah.
just be, you know. So, okay, hold on. Da, 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 da. Let's see. Yeah. So, okay, now, um, I see, and I can't imagine going through, not going through the awareness piece of the puzzle. I don't know how else I would have gotten here, but I guess there are other ways, or you people just snap. Oh, have you? I know one thing I wanted to share with you. Have you seen that? It was kind of a key piece to this final stage. Bob Newhart, the comedian.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And do you know about the stop it bit that he did?
No, no, no.
Oh my
Send
God.
it to me. Send it to
I'm
me. Yeah.
going to. I will.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
hilarious. And it's just this whole thing of, well, just stop. If you're suffering, just stop. And it's a bit that he did. And I was like, it's almost like I didn't know that was, I mean, I knew it was an option, but it's weird. I had to hear it. And then
Yeah.
the way I found you was in a comment to another teacher's videos that I really liked, and his full name was on the comment. So I just reached out and said, I liked your comment. I'd like to connect just for a visit because there's not a lot of people
Hmm.
at this juncture.
Yeah.
And so he said, absolutely. But he said, since that comment, it was a few months ago, I have had sessions with this person named Emerson, and I'm completely dropped that person's, and I'm not involved with those teachings anymore, and I'm really just kind of done. And I was like, so here
Yeah.
I am. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's his
So,
name? Okay, we don't have to mention
well, I
it
don't want
here.
to say it on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
recording in
Yeah.
case you post this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
happy to tell you offline or in the
Yeah. Yeah.
email.
We will. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you know what? It's I appreciate those teachers and speakers, but kind of like, you know what? But I'm here for the seeker. You know what I'm saying? So I meet them where they're at, right? And
Yes,
and even
yes.
though there's this clarity here that there's nothing happening, no one here, whatever, I you know, it's you go in between the story and reach out, you know what I'm saying? Because I went through so much suffering. So if I'm just going to sit on my there's no one here chair,
No, this
um,
person was not one of those
oh,
teachers.
okay, okay, okay,
No,
okay,
no,
good.
no, no, no,
Oh,
no, 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 no. This person meets you where you are very well.
oh, really? Okay.
Very well.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
So,
Okay. Yep. We'll talk about it when we stop the
yeah,
recording. Yeah.
yeah. But so is there anything else, any other point? I guess you'd say them if there were any other pointings you thought I need at this time.
um, that
Or
there's
does
no
it feel pretty
pointing.
clear? It feels pretty clear.
The point is that there's no pointing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's nowhere to go, right? Because if you can go to the if you can go to the past, if you can't go, if there's no next, then you must
There's
be stuck in the infinite.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And that's basically it. This is just the infinite expression of the infinite appearing as whatever this is. Right.
yeah.
So thoughts might come and go, you know what I'm saying? But they're just thoughts. So who cares?
Exactly. That's what I'm finally getting. That's
Yeah.
what's finally like, oh, I believe that. Oh, now I don't. I mean,
It's funny because you know what someone asked me some other teacher in the past controversial teacher basically said that if your teacher still have thoughts or speaker have thoughts, then whatever. And then so someone asked me, Emerson, you still have thoughts? I'm like, funny, I haven't thought about it in a while.
But
It doesn't matter,
right.
saying
Yeah, and
because when
mine
you
may
come
never
into a
end.
landing again, right? When you come into a landing, that there should be no thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Bless
Yeah.
that character, he ended up in a psychiatric ward, you know what I'm saying? Because when you
Wow.
hold on to a position, right, it becomes a mental thing, right? There's just so much more that you can, try to have no thoughts. And it's just there's no prerequisites, there's no this is as random as dreaming of drinking matcha tea latte in on the volcano of Mars or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not one thing. It's
Well,
not
and
a thought. Yeah.
the other thing that came clear is it's all those things that are said as prescriptions. You
Yes,
have to,
right.
they're descriptions
They
of
are.
how life becomes after the
Mm-hmm.
clarity, not
Yeah.
to get the clarity.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's like when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, but people take it and make it a dogma.
It is. And it
And then
doesn't matter when it comes from an opinion of someone. And I'll admit it, right? This character has opinions, but I always tell people don't believe in or make my what I say into gospel. I keep on changing words because I see how some seeker can hold on to what I'm saying and basically make it into a belief system. So even descriptive becomes prescriptive
oh,
because you're describing that there's no me. So what's the remedy of that? Well, even if saying that there's no remedy, that's the remedy.
right,
Yeah.
right. It's such a hamster wheel.
It is such a hamster wheel. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can stop recording now and then
Yeah,
we
sure.
can
Yeah, for
talk
sure.
of little tidbits because
Yeah.
I do want to give credit to who told me about
Yeah,
you.
yeah, for sure. Okay.